Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, and welcome to the Karey Carbaugh podcast. Buenas noches, damas y caballeros, chicos y chicas, niños de todas edades, y bienvenidos a el Karey Carbaugh podcast, episodio número 57. Welcome to the Karey Carbaugh podcast, episode number 57. My name is Karey Carbaugh, and this is the Karey Carbaugh podcast. I do appreciate you all joining me tonight, whether you're joining me live or on the replay. If you could let me know in the comments whether you're joining me live by putting the word live or an L in the comments, or if you're joining me on the replay by putting the word replay or an R in the comments, that would be very much appreciated. It's always helpful for me to know how many people are catching this live and how many people are coming on and watching the replay. Also, if you could let me know where you're dialing in from. This podcast is reaching pretty broadly throughout the world, and it's interesting for me to see where people are dialing in from. With that, let's jump into tonight's podcast. Once again, my name is Karey Carbaugh, and this is the Karey Carbaugh podcast. Thanks for joining me. Tonight's episode, we're a few minutes late here. It never seems to fail. The more I plan to get here and get on time, the more things just seem to get in the way. But here we are. Tonight's podcast is titled, What Will You Be Remembered For? And this is a continuation of some of the recent topics we've had on developing New Year's resolutions, or rather, as we discussed a few weeks ago, New Year's plans and strategies. And this is a continuation, exploring your God-given purpose and what you were put on this earth to do. As I've explained before, I am a believer. I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I believe in Christ. I don't push that belief on anyone else, but I also don't hide it. So if you're not a believer, I hope you'll be able to take what's intended from this podcast and use it for your own good in whatever your belief system is. But I will be presenting tonight from a Christian standpoint, although tonight's episode I won't be reading specifically from the Bible, as I have in some prior episodes. And as I've explained in the past, the purpose of these podcasts, although it's still being refined, is to help people with their self-esteem. And I believe that understanding your God-given purpose and living out that purpose is a major part of one's self-esteem and positive self-esteem. And a major piece of that is figuring out, what is your purpose? What is God calling you here to do? As we discussed last week, the main purpose, the basic purpose for all of us, is to love and worship the Creator, God Almighty, and to love and worship His Son, Jesus Christ, in my belief system anyway. And beyond that, God gives us certain gifts and talents. We went into that a little bit last week. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about how He calls people, and sometimes maybe not in ways that we feel ourselves gifted. What do I mean by that? Well, this last week in church we were studying again through the book of Nehemiah, chapter 3, talking about rebuilding the wall in Jerusalem. And the people that were called were common people. They were priests, pastors. They were shop owners, gold makers and jewelers, perfumers. People who make and sell perfume were called to help build the wall. There are, I believe it was about 80 people named in this chapter that were called to build this wall. And here we are over 2,000 years later. This is what we're reading about these people. And it struck me last night in a Bible study that I'm guessing none of those people, when they got close to the end of their life, if they were asked to explain what the most significant contribution in their life was, maybe not none, but I bet very few of them would have mentioned helping to rebuild the wall. That was probably only, they say that the wall was rebuilt in about 52 days. So maybe a couple months of their life spent building the wall. And that was a very small part of their entire life. And yet that is what they're remembered for. Why? Because that's what they were called to do by the Creator. The rest of their life was certainly important, but even though they weren't necessarily gifted in building, constructing walls, that may not have been their profession, that was the purpose that God called them to do at that time in their life. And that is what they're remembered for. And so, if you think about the people in your life, maybe you have a mentor or a person who's been very significant in your life. What do you remember about that person? Is it the big things they did? Is it if it's your pastor, is it the sermon that he stayed up all night writing and perfecting? Probably not. Is it in your own life? Are people going to remember you for that report that you spent all night getting perfect for your job? Are they going to remember you for being on time every day? I'm guessing probably not. As I think about it, and I was reflecting last night in our Bible study group, when I've met with youth that I've worked with over my life, in fact, I just had such a meeting with one at Christmas time this year, the things that they tend to mention are not the big, grandiose things, that game that we spent hours preparing and planning. And yeah, those are fun and those contribute to the moment. But the things that people tend to remember, from my experience, are the things that people demonstrate which show how much they care. And many times I've had youth mention the small things. Sometimes they'll mention something that I said, and I always get nervous thinking, oh gosh, I hope they remembered the right thing I said, because I've certainly made a few mistakes in my life. And fortunately, generally speaking, they do remember the right things, the good things. But what tends to come out is that they remembered those who were just there at a time in their life when they needed them. Those who showed that they cared. I've heard it said that, and I tried to find this in the Bible. I don't know that this is biblical, but I've heard it referenced a lot, that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And the other one that I've heard referenced a lot is that God does not call the gifted, but rather he gifts those who are called according to his purpose. I couldn't find either one of those in the Bible. The first one I don't think is biblical, but the second one, I've heard it referenced a lot biblically. I was not able to find that specifically said in the Bible, that God does not call those who are gifted. Rather, he gifts those who are called according to his purpose. Even if that isn't specifically stated in the Bible, I think there's some merit there, that he doesn't always call those who are the best construction workers to build his temple or to build his walls. Rather, those that he calls to do that work, he will provide the skills and the gifts. When I first started going to Mexico on mission trips, as many of you who know me personally know that this is a big part of my life, when I first started going to Mexico, I was not gifted. I did not speak that much Spanish. I knew a few words from high school, from Spanish class. Certainly not enough to just jump in and start conversing with people. But over the years, as I continued going, God gave me those gifts to be able to converse with people. It started with a gift to love them and appreciate them where they were at. No expectations, no predetermined expectations. Rather, I went with an open heart and an open mind, and now some of my dearest friends are people that I've met on the mission trips to Mexico. We've been friends now, some of them, for nearly 30 years. And so I think there's some value to the little things we do in life that are part of God's plan. Part of God's plan to love Him, to serve Him, and to love each other. I know I tend to look for the big contributions that I can make, the major breaks or influences that I can have. And while those may be important, not to minimize those, most of us will never have a chance to impact the entire world with our actions. Most of us will never be a Stephen Jobs or a Bill Gates or some of the other greats, a president of the United States or a leader of a country. Most of us will never have those opportunities. But we are called to be a light in this world, shining God's light into the darkness. We're called to love each other. We're called to sit down together, to do life together, and to just be present with one another. And through that, oftentimes we are given opportunities to serve in ways that we never thought possible. That's some of what I've been exploring with this podcast, and the purpose for this podcast is, who am I being called to serve with these podcasts? And I struggled with that for quite a while before I started doing these, and finally I just started doing them. I'm still refining the purpose, but ultimately the purpose is to shine God's light into the world and to reach those who may not otherwise be reached, who may need a word of encouragement for their self-esteem, to build up their self-esteem and their feelings of self-worth. So it's my hope and my prayer before each one of these and throughout these podcasts that this is reaching someone and providing some hope and encouragement in a world that doesn't offer a lot of hope and encouragement sometimes. So if you've gotten value from this, I would appreciate it if you would drop the word value or a V in the comments. And if you can relate to any of this, let me know that by dropping the word relate. As we bring this in for a closing, I hope this has been valuable. I hope that you have found this worth your time. And I'm not seeing any comments coming in. Sometimes I do try to respond to comments, but I always look afterwards and respond to the comments if I can't do them live, which is a little bit difficult. As some of you know, I'm vision impaired, and sometimes it's difficult for me to respond to the comments live. But I'm not seeing any live comments tonight, so I hope you found this valuable. If you'd like to be added to my email list so that I can invite you to some more private events to explore some of these topics that we've talked about on the podcasts, let me know that by dropping the word email in the comments or by direct messaging me with your email address. You don't need to share that publicly. I will keep those private. I will respect your privacy and not share those with others. So, once again, this has been the Karey Carbaugh podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the support that you all have given me through these. And until next week, make it a blessed week. Be a blessing to those you come in contact with, and do something positive for someone around you. Make it a blessed week, and we'll see you on the Karey Carbaugh podcast next week, if I don't pop up in the meantime somewhere. Have a great night, or a great day, depending on when you're watching this. Goodbye for now.